I mean, you talk about, the happenstances of life and how you intersect with various people. I mean, there are people in your profession who can coach 40, 50 years and never come close to coaching the caliber of a player, a quarterback whose last name is Manning.
Yeah.
And you coached two of them.
How about that?
Of course, Peyton, you were the offensive coordinator at Tennessee, and then Eli, you were the head coach at Ole Miss, so you got them both. So outside of Archie, you know them as well as anybody. Aside from the physical talents and physically the way that they play, in terms of their personality and their makeup, how are those two brothers the most alike, and how are they the most different from each other?
The way they are most alike is that their brain is a computer. What goes in it stays there. It's amazing how fast they think. When I knew Eli was the real deal is when he sounded just like Peyton coming off the field. And what I mean by that, I'm on the sideline and he's coming out and I'm asking about a particular play. And the play may have lasted 5 seconds. To tell you what was going through their mind will take them 40 seconds because that many thoughts are firing that quickly. So I call it fast twitch brain fiber. They can process at an amazing speed. So they are really strong Wi-Fi, I can promise you. It's big time. The thing that separates them in an amazing way also is that Peyton is so intense, so into tradition of football.
Big on the history of the game.
Loves it and is just eating up with it and is just always intense about that. Eli, it didn't matter to Eli, but when it comes to preparation or that mind, he's a rocket scientist.
I mean, I'm sure you've heard this a lot with us, gosh, I could coach the Mannings. I mean, these guys are unbelievably talented. You've had great quarterbacks, but I don't think people realize how much of a study you've made about the quarterback position and how to play it and how to teach it and all the methods that you use. In fact, I think I saw that you're a big checklist guy, right?
Absolutely.
That you have a big book of Tell me about the checklists.
Well, every mistake I've ever made in coaching, I write it down. And I've done it as a head coach, I've done it as an assistant coach, different positions that I've coached through the years. I've gathered other people's thoughts at coaching their positions. So when you make a mistake, it's okay. The key is trying not to make the same mistake twice. But Peyton and Eli, if I could say one thing about why playing for us was so important, is that we taught them the right process. Now, have they built on it? Absolutely. Every time I'm with them now, I learn. I would like to think that they learn because we've all kept growing. But here's the thing that we share, and I think I helped this, is to be able to make practice like a game, to make every drill. I was a kid that grew up, and I'd throw in a pasture, and I played in more NFL championship games than anybody in history. I've hit more game-winning shots in NBA games. I threw the ball up and hit it over a pasture fence, more home runs than Willie Mays. I may not have the most of all time, but I got a bunch of them. And that's how we coach. I love what we're doing. So if the three of us are in the indoor complex here, hey, it's Super Bowl. And it doesn't matter whether we're doing an individual drill. I think what the three of us do is that we visualize the process is exactly the same. It is game day every rep.
I mentioned your time at Ole Miss and what your first few years were like here. So your first 5 years at Ole Miss, you had the highest winning percentage in the history of that school of any coach in his first 5 years. In year 5, that's when you had Eli his last year. You guys go 10-3. You win the SEC West. You beat Oklahoma State in the Cotton Bowl. You finished ranked 13th in the season. A phenomenal season. The next year Eli leaves, there's a dip. 4-7, 3-5 in the SEC. And at the end of the season, the athletic director, Pat Boone, says this is not working. You need to get rid of some assistants. We need to reevaluate. And you're gone.
And things happen for a reason.
Were you bitter?
Not really. I was hurt. You know, hurt would be a better description. You know, I didn't think that they would fire me, but I knew it was deteriorating as a relationship. But they have every right to do what they want to do. They're the boss, I'm the employee. So you have to accept it and move on. And then I think later, you know, there were a lot of things, you know, I'm a spiritual person, so there were a lot of things that occurred that I might have died of a heart attack on the spot had I remained the head football coach at the University of Mississippi. That March, that very next March, I'm having bypass heart surgery. I had no idea that I was potentially in trouble till I went to Notre Dame and lived in the cold weather.
First
then
time.
I started feeling it
Yeah,
up there.
they'll do it. But you started getting, I was going to ask you about that, so you started getting, you didn't have a heart attack or anything, but
Never had a heart
you didn't
attack, but
feel
I
well?
had severe chest pains up there right prior to coming back to Mississippi where my family was for spring break. And literally I'd get up, you know, at 4:30 in the morning, it's snowing sideways, you go out there and try to clear your car off, and then I'd have to go back in, it was in the Residence Inn, and lay down. My physical activities started bothering me a little bit, and so I didn't tell anybody but my wife. And so we set up a stress test. When I got back to Oxford, they stopped it in a minute.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and because I guess my heart was all over the place, they took me straight over to the hospital for the arteriogram, and then from that point, they took me to Tupelo, Mississippi by ambulance to do the surgery the next morning. So I'm assuming I was probably that close to heart failure. Thank goodness a lot of great people took care of me there. And now I feel like $1 million. You know, I mean, I've gotten a new lease on life. I know that I'm here for a purpose, and I know I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I am a football coach, and I am a college football coach in these formative years, and I'm very passionate about that.
And yet I'm still reading that you only sleep maybe 4 hours a night, and you're in the office at 5:30 in the morning, and paper bag lunch and working until late hours. And it's interesting because I had this conversation with Steve Spurrier a couple of weeks ago, and you know, as he said, he's like, I've never been a guy I got to be in the office, feel like I got to get in the office to outwork the other guy. And I know there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, but I'm just thinking, here's a guy who's had a heart issue and still seems like he's grinding himself, and it worries me a little bit.
It's in my nature. It's a Cutcliffe, and it's kind of what we do, and I really enjoy it. But I'm a guy. I've always included my family in what I do. But Seth, if I weren't here working passionately about something, I'm sure that my motor would be run. I would be doing something that would not be productive for myself or anybody else. And so I like serving others, and that's kind of what you get to do in this job.